4th June 2023, an impressive march took place in the center of Warsaw. Hundreds of thousands of people, and even 500,000 of them, according to the organizers, marched to express their disagreement with Law and Justice, the ruling party policies, to say that Polish democracy is in danger and that they were ready to defend or restore it. Was the event impressive? Indeed. Will it bring the new quality to Polish politics? Not really, and I will explain you why. First of all, the date, 4th June, that was chosen for the march in April is not an accident. On 4th June 1989, Polish citizens had the chance to vote in so-called contract elections or partially free elections in a format agreed between the opposition and the ruling Communist Party during the roundtable negotiations. In the elections, Polish citizens were to choose the bicameral parliament, with the Senate being entirely free to choose, and with the Sejm or the lower chamber divided between the ruling party and the opposition in a proportion 65 to 35%. The result of the election was an overwhelming victory of the opposition, which took all the freely available places in the parliament, and some of the most prominent party members, including that time Prime Minister Mieczysław Rakowski, were not elected to the parliament at all. So, a great victory of the opposition and the real beginning of Polish liberal democracy. For the organizers of yesterday's march, as we are recording on 5 June, this is an anniversary when authoritarianism was destroyed in Poland, the era of freedom started, and so this is a perfect symbol day when a new stage of fighting for Polish democracy, this time against the right-wing authoritarians, might start. The only problem with the symbol is that, as the survey showed before the march, more than 50% of Polish people do not really recognize it. They either don't remember the date of these partially free elections or don't think that their lives changed for the better at that point. The march looked basically like all the big opposition events we have witnessed during last year. There was Donald Tusk, the leader of Civic Platform, the biggest opposition party, speaking from the stage. This time, basically all the key opposition parties declared support for the event, even though it was Tusk and the Civic Platform that worked as the main organizers. In the Tusk speech, there were no elements we haven't known before. He spoke about real Poland being here on the march. He spoke that he saw a lot of people ready to fight for democracy. And he also said that the era of freedom is coming again. Well, I believe that people who were in the square at the time genuinely believed he was speaking the truth. And I believe that this was an authentic expression of their political views. However, the other half of Poland, those people who do not believe Tusk and those who vote for Law and Justice, simply stayed home and believed what their political leaders said. They called the march the event where liars assemble. They said that the only Tusk's aim is to regain power and to make Polish people poor again. So, while one side of the Polish political conflict is believing that they are democracy fighters, the other side is, with the same easiness, believing that Law and Justice is the only party that actually worked for the good of Polish people and that the liberal opposition must be stopped at any cost. Having said this, you can realize that the march did not prove that the opposition is getting new sympathizers or new voters. It only proved that both sides of the Polish conflict have a big reservoir of very mobilized and very, very convicted sympathizers who are ready to participate in the events aimed at the other side of the conflict. There is no will for dialogue. I will say in a moment why I think the dialogue is even not possible at this stage. And there is also no willingness to search for some third ways or some other political forces that could synthesize the best elements of each option. As a Polish society, we are basically divided into two groups. First one, believing that the period of liberal democracy was generally good, even though it could have had some misconceptions or some mistakes committed in the process. And the other side that believes that basically in 1989, the post-communist elites the shared the wealth that Poland had with a part of the opposition, while the most of common people were left with nothing. This second option is fanatically connected to law and justice, and there are good reasons to believe that this party is the one they can trust. For the Liberal Democrats who spoke in the Tusk's march are not associated in the minds of big part of the society with freedom, with personal achievements, or with big possibilities that opened up in front of Polish people after 1989. They are associated with low wages under Tusk rule as prime minister. They are associated with Tusk's, I would say, prejudices against the poor people he presented in his period when in power. They are also associated with the time when Polish factories were privatized, where Polish industry was dismantled. Basically, when Polish people in the country were also losing their jobs during the transformations, and as in short, those whose lives under liberal democracy was quite good are today standing with Tusk's, and all those who didn't really profit from the period are more eager to trust law and justice. And this will not be easy. This border will not be easily crossed. During the last couple of years, some politicians in Poland tried to emerge as a third force. We had Robert Biedroń with his attempt to build a center-left technocratic American-style party. There was Paweł Kukis, a former rock singer who tried to organize a protest movement and who failed miserably in the end. During the last presidential election, there was a Catholic politician, Szymon Hołownia, who promised that despite his religious convictions, he would be able to dialogue with everybody. In the end, it turned out that all the third forces are absorbed by each of the camps, and the real political struggle still takes part between the right wing with a social face, as they pretend to be, as they want to be seen, and the liberals who claim to be pro-freedom, pro-Europe, pro-personal development. I'm fairly convinced that many people in Poland do not really feel fully belonging to either of the camps. However, what has happened in the last months of the law and justice rule makes more and more people make their choice and join one of the tribes for good and the bad. Namely, the last moves by Law and Justice, including the setting up of the parliamentary commission that is to examine Russian influence in Poland, made a lot of people believe that democracy in Poland is really in danger. While the anti-reform in the courts was something very abstract to most of people, the proposal to set a commission who would be able to eliminate politicians from political life under some vague definition of Russian influence, that was something that really made some beliefs that if we don't stop law and justice now, we might end up in a Putin-styled country very soon. The Polish electoral campaign is in full swing. On the law and justice side, the beginning sign was to announce that the children's benefits offered by the government will be much bigger if Law and Justice gets re-elected. They also claim to continue their social policies and to protect citizens from inflation, which so far does not go that good, but the opposition is not very credible at this point neither. The 4th June march was to be the opposition's answer and show that there are a lot of Polish people who are not believing the law and justice and who prefer to defend democracy rather than get social benefits. Yes, this was basically this kind of discourse in the opposition camp. What do we know after both is that every side has its faithful supporters, sympathizers, fans, tell them whatever you want, and that they are absolutely unwilling to enter in the dialogue with another side. And given all the undemocratic proposals and law and justice, perhaps this dialogue is even no longer possible.